It's a wild world out there, but some worlds are even wilder. Hi, I'm Tyler Habney, and you're listening to Dungeons and Dystopias. Thank you for listening. Hello, and welcome back to Dungeons and Dystopias. I am your host and game master, Tyler Habney. I have run a combined total of over 200 sessions of Dungeons and Dragons and Cyberpunk Red. And I guess I'm here today to just share a little bit about my thoughts about various things about both of those systems. Today, we are going to be going back to Cyberpunk, and we're going to be discussing a little bit about some of the different gangs that you can find in Night City in the time of the Red, more specifically, because the gangs you find in Night City change pretty drastically. Depending on what age you're kind of playing the game in. Night City in 2020 had a lot of gangs that are pretty much extinct by the time the time of the Red rolls around, and the same can be said for gangs that are in the time of the Red, and by the time Cyberpunk 2077 rolls around, they've been done and dusted for a while. Piranhas, the Bozos, huge examples of that. And we will be talking a bit more about the Piranhas and the Bozos later on. But for now, I just like to say a lot of these gangs, obviously I have a bit of experience with because my players have encountered them. But if a gang does show up in 2077, we'll also talk a bit about sort of their representation and what that kind of means for the development and history of said gang. So without further ado, we're going to sort of go alphabetically here, at least, how they're kind of listed. And we're going to start with 6th Street, which is present in 2077. So 6th Street was in the time of the Red, a sort of congregation of Fourth War veterans, a lot of whom worked for Militech or Arasaka and were basically thrown to the wayside after the Fourth Corporate War ended and Night City exploded. So they've kind of banded together as a sort of group of ex-veterans, and their initial goal was to basically operate as a police unit in northern Haywood. But of course, as time went on and money became a lot more scarce for 6th Street, Night City started to, maybe build back a bit. There was a lot of police coming back. A lot of corporations were starting to rebuild into the city. And by the time of 2077, 6th Street is basically resorted to any other street gang where they're extorting people for money, running protection rackets, essentially just being a danger to a lot of the different people of Haywood, or in 2077, it's now Santo Domingo, because the people of Haywood moved, or a lot of them did. They took the neighborhood name with them. So that's fun. 6th Street, they are basically the de facto sort of police force during the time of the Red in northern Haywood. The police, they have a deal with the police for this type of, I guess you would call it jurisdiction or authority over that area. And the police don't mess with it because they literally cannot afford to. And also, 6th Street's saving them some money, so why not? Moving on, we have the next big gang. And I do want to kind of go over just the big gangs today. There are a lot of really small gangs. For instance, the albino alligators. They are a gang that runs out of a drive-through, car wash, an abandoned car wash in, and they get all their stuff, their uniforms from the car wash employee outfits. And since the car wash just loaded up on these employee outfits, there's just a ton of them because they always have more shirts to give out. Yep, that's the albino alligators. The Bozos are not in 2077, or at least not really. We'll get to that. But the Bozos are, when I first described Night City on this podcast, I mentioned that the gangs of Night City, or one of the gangs of Night City, had to do with gang stalking clowns who have their bodies cybernetically augmented to look like actual clowns. So like, those aren't clown shoes; those are the real feet. Their nose is actually a big ball, and sometimes, many times actually, that ball explodes. So watch out around bozos. Their main shtick is they will drive people insane by stalking them, and then they will turn them into a bozo and continue on this vicious cycle. During the time of the Red, there's this huge bozo civil war. That's right, a clown civil war between various different circuses, which are basically a bozo word for gang. And they're all trying to outcompete each other in who can do the most messed up pranks and cause the most damage. And that is obviously a very risky situation for a lot of people in Night City, because the bozos are insane. Next up, I guess this is a gang. They are talked about in the Danger Gal dossier, which is where we get a lot of information about gangs. But Generation Red is a congregation of something that they call yo-gangers, which stands for youth ganger. And I mean, it's what it says on the tin. Generation Red concerns the people of Night City who are below the age of 18, but are in a gang. Yo-gangers. That's right. In Night City, things are so bad you might find yourself getting mugged by a group of 12-year-olds, and there's not a lot you can do about that. It's a really bad situation. And a lot of these kids, their parents either aren't paying attention or aren't in the picture, so they wind up with a gun in their hands or some other thing, and they go out and they do street rat stuff. Pretty terrible, but at the same time, Generation Red is a faction, and they're honestly pretty cool. If you look into their stuff in Danger Gal dossier, I haven't really done a ton with Generation Red personally. A lot of my games, we tend to try to keep kids out of crazy situations, like edge running in Night City. The next big gang is obviously, not obviously, for those who don't know, the Inquisitors. The Inquisitors, they're kind of one of the more hated gangs in Night City. You'd be hard pressed to find a gang in Night City that does not hate the Inquisitors, and that's because of one very simple reason: they hate cyberware. The Inquisitors they think you are sinning if you have a cyberware, that you're committing some atrocity against God because you're twisting your form from what He would have wanted, and that's probably what a lot of people would do or have a religious stance on if we did have cybernetics to the level we did have in Night City. So these people just take that to an extreme, and they are almost cultish with it. They are a really good enemy to just kind of throw in whenever, because one of their whole things that they like to do is ride around in a van at night and kidnap people and rip their cyberware out. They don't care if it kills them. Yeah, pretty bad. That is a pretty tough crime, especially considering some people have, like cybernetic hair, cybernetic nails, cybernetic eyes. You get the idea. After that comes the Iron Sights, who aren't around in 2077, same with the Inquisitors, but these guys were around in 2020. And in the 2020s, they actually served as a sort of a terrorist gang that worked on behalf of Arasaka, which is huge, because obviously Arasaka is one of the big mega corporations. The thing with that is, after the Fourth Corporate War, the Arasaka funding kind of dried up. So the Iron Sights are kind of languishing for a bit, but just recently, mysteriously, in the time of the Red, they've gotten their funding back. Somebody is funding the Iron Sights, and I do not believe it has ever been confirmed as to who that is. Everyone personally, I have my own theories. I don't think any of those theories are necessarily founded on anything, but if I had to guess, since the Tiger Claws aren't within Arasaka's pocket at the moment, we can probably assume that it might just be Arasaka coming back. So, Who knows? We'll have to keep an eye out and see if we're ever actually told who's in charge of the iron sights right now. Next up, this one is in 2077. This one is in, I'd say, the most 2077 media. This is Maelstrom. Maelstrom is probably the most important gang in Night City from a lore standpoint when you really consider that they have been sort of present throughout the 2020s, the 2045 and 2077. They weren't Maelstrom necessarily as we knew them in 2020. But the sort of history there is, they were just a bunch of people who really liked cyberware. And they were a gang. And then, there's people, other gangs in 2020 like Slaughterhouse, the Wild Things. And they were a bit more dedicated towards cyberware and chroming up. So they were a bit more vicious too. And then after the Fourth Corporate War, Maelstrom they all kind of came together, and that's where the name Maelstrom comes from. Is a maelstrom of all these different types of gangs that fell apart, all coming together and forming this vicious pack of wild dogs that really care about scavenging, taking cyberware off of bodies, searching the hot zone, stuff like that. And by the time of the Red, they're occupying the Totentans, which they also occupy in 2077, but the Totentans at a different location, which is right in the middle of the hot zone. So Maelstrom, a very cool gang. By 2077, they've essentially come to their turf tends to stretch through the upper portion of Watson into the Militech military base area. But, yeah. Anyways, next up, we have the Philharmonic Vampires, another gang that sadly did not make it to 2077. I would have killed somebody to see this, man. But they are a gang of, I want to say mostly university kids and art students who like to dress up as vampires and commit wacky hijinks. They're not even like selling drugs or killing people. They are committing pranks. They're all about wacky, high publicity stunts that get the attention of the Philharmonic Vampires. They put on shows of Dracula and all these old plays that have to do with vampires in the university district. And, they do have a bit of a thing with the Juilliard, which is a small gang of basically mimes who go around and protect street performers. So they also have a bit of a beef with the Addams, which is a poser gang made entirely to look like the Addams Family. So yeah, we're skipping over a lot of really small time gangs here, but just know it doesn't get any less strange. The Piranhas are a party gang. Imagine the Saints from Saints Row. They're basically dedicated towards partying and getting messed up and having a good time. And if, mugging you means they're having a great time, then hey, they're going to do it because that's going to be fun and they're going to have such a great time, even though you're probably not, because whatever, you're not a piranha. It doesn't matter. They are infamous for being at just about any party thrown in Night City. If you go to like a house party or anything in Night City, there's a good chance that there is at least one piranha sort of swimming around, selling out whatever product they've got on them. And, that can be pretty nice, but at the same time, gives them a pretty great leverage when it comes to information and how things move around in Night City. They are led by someone named Corpse Reviver, who revived the gang, hence the name Corpse Reviver. And now the gang is flourishing under her watch. Unfortunately, they do not make it to 2077, so that flourishing does not last for long. Next up, the Red Chrome Legion. This is something we've talked about before. They are neo-Nazis. That's pretty much it. The gang started as a bunch of neo-Nazi LARPers, and then eventually they just got co-opted, I guess. I don't know. I think there were always neo-Nazis, to be honest with you. Pretty much my least favorite gang, just because, well, Icky people, very icky. Don't, yeah, but we use them to great effect. I've had an entire campaign dedicated to taking down and dismantling the Red Chrome, which I think you can even hear about a bit if you listen to some of my previous podcasts with my friend Jordan. The next one, we have I'm going to say, you know what? We're going to dedicate this next second to the Saturday Night Butt Kickers. Their entire bit is that they show up on the Saturday night and they kick your butt. That's it. They don't kill anybody. They just kick their butt. Saturday Night Butt Kickers, probably one of the best gangs in Night City. They know what they want. The Tiger Claws are the self-appointed defenders of the Japanese community in Night City. They are right now funded by a group of multiple different Japanese corporations, including Kuroshi, Nikola, stuff like that. And basically, they operate as 6th Street does, but in Kabuki and Old Japantown. So right now, in 2045, that's pretty much where they're at. Pretty well-funded sort of police force defender of the Japanese community. But by 2077... Arasaka has snuck their way in and has basically now turned the Tiger Claws into a puppet faction, which is not what Shinobu II would want. Rest in peace to him by 2077. Voodoo Boys, this one's fun. They are in 2077 as well. They are initially started as a group of people who are basically co-opting Haitian culture in order to look cool. That's kind of a thing. But eventually in the 2040s, when a bunch of actual Haitians migrated to Night City, they saw all this and got a little offended. So the old Voodoo Boys were quickly taken out and replaced with actual Haitian Voodoo Boys. And the gang changed from just this normal sort of drug-dealing terrorist gang to, what they started to slowly form into what they become in 2077, which is this sort of isolationist techno worshipping group who want to study the Black Wall. They're pretty cool as a faction over the years. In 2077, though, you can pretty much completely destroy them, which is a shame because they are a very interesting group of people. Our last gang we're going to talk about, I guess they're a gang, is the Zoners. And these people are primarily people who live in the South Combat Zone, which is the most gang war-torn part of the city. And basically, all these people want is better living conditions. And they are treated like a gang. They're not exactly anarchists, but they are showing quite a bit of disobedience to the system in an attempt to get attention put on the conditions in South Night City. And that has earned them the status of a gang. They're not really too much of a gang, in my opinion. There's also the Steel Vaqueros, who are basically smugglers who are nomads. I actually haven't done a ton with the Steel Vaqueros. They're kind of just a normal group of people just trying to get by. So that's kind of a look at all the different gangs in Night City. We're going to move on now to our little ending bit here, where I'm going to talk about our metaphorical monster of the week. And this week, we are going to be discussing Zeta Tech. So Zeta Tech, what they do is they make a lot of things. But as is relevant in 2045, they are just now starting to get into the development of a bunch of different things. And part of that is the development of things like AVs in certain types of vehicles. So if you look at Zeta Tech online, you're going to be able to note that their product line does start to diversify from computers into vehicles by 2045. And that is not necessarily a coincidence, some could say. The idea is that Zeta Tech is starting to expand their businesses, and they are taking over old companies in order to get into these businesses and be able to make all of this new stuff. So Zeta Tech right now is under a lot of expansion. And that can lead to a lot of very confident moves being made. We don't actually know a ton about Zeta Tech in terms of the terrible things they've done, but we can know that in 2077, if you take a certain ending, you do find out that Zeta Tech actually tries to basically expand their influence and take over a good portion of Night City by 2079. So Zeta Tech is actually sort of on the come up in terms of the lore and in their history. They're expanding in 2045, and by 2079, they're going to be one of the most important companies in Night City. So not necessarily one where we can comment a lot on their past actions, but what we can do is say, hey, they're a company to watch to see exactly how that kind of stuff happens. And that personally is kind of the interesting part of Cyberpunk for me. So with that, that'll be it for us today. Thank you so much for listening to Dungeons and Dystopias, and please come back and listen next week.